So we're going to go back to how your decisions really impact all industries and people across BC. And it's not just like a health thing, but health is really an intersectional topic with all these social determinants of health. So with that being said, do you have any processes put into place to evaluate these consequences and how your decisions will impact all these different industries? And what does that process look like?
Absolutely. And they're not all mine. So things that we learn early on is that there are people who have expertise in all those different areas. And I don't know if you remember early on when we, were reopening restaurants and people were saying, well, how are you going to know? So we have an industry table that we meet with regularly that is restaurants, bars, and pubs and liquor serving premises. We have an industry table that is around the arts and sports, and where we talk with them about, well, what makes sense for you? Is it, this is our aim. We want to reduce transmission in these settings. How does that work? What are the things that make a difference? So that's why we would come up with things like, youth sports can happen, but without spectators in the indoor settings. So we consult a lot with the different places that are impacted. And one of the things I did very early on was work with WorkSafe BC and the Ministry of Labor. And so we had truckers that were part of a group. We had the food processing plants. Because they all had very specific needs that I am no expert in. But what our area of expertise is to say, well, these are the things that make it risky. If you're indoors, if you're close together, if you don't have sick leave policies, because that means people can't stay home when they're sick. So we said, here's the things that need to be addressed, and you are the experts in your industry. Come up with those. So we came up with things like COVID safety plans that were very specific, and they were, I think they were one of the big success stories that we had in BC that allowed us to keep. We kept most industries open through most of this pandemic. We never had a lockdown in the same sense of many other places. So, but it was based on you know how to run your business. Here's the things that you need to take into account. And WorkSafe inspectors and public health inspectors worked with each industry to come up with guidance that was specific to those industries that made sense, that worked in those industries. The other thing that we really wanted to do early on that I thought was incredibly important was look at what we called the unicons, the unintended consequences, both positive and negative, on society of the measures that we had to put in place to manage COVID. And I mentioned that one of the things we did was the surveys that periodically, but we also have a group that's looked at different indicators, and we've prioritized them, and it's about measuring the impacts. Were there some things that were beneficial that we need to do more of? Were there some things that were differentially impacting different populations? So we know from this work, so we have a very dedicated team that looks at the data around this, and we've engaged with different communities. We have a South Asian community group that we collected data specifically on impacts on that community, and we worked with community leaders to say, how do we address these things? How do we have safe weddings during wedding season? How do we address the fact that about 30% of the truckers in the province are South Asian, and we had special immunization clinics for them in specific, so these are, how do we look at the differential impact, the inequities that existed previously that were again heightened by this pandemic, low wage earners who worked in industries like your grocery store clerks and your people working in food production, who were essential, that we needed, and how do we support them? What are the things that were important to support them? So we have this project, and there's a website that helps, that we've put up things, the ones that are up there now are around mental health issues, and we've seen mental health issues in young people, for example. We have one on the impact on childhood immunization programs, the impact on alcohol and substance use. So yeah, there's lots of really important societal consequences. But I also think that there's a lot of data out there, and there's going to be many, many PhD theses about every different aspect of this and what worked and what didn't work. And we need to learn from that because, I think we've learned now that we are all connected in so many ways. And if we don't prepare ourselves to be able to be more resilient, and that, the next thing that comes along is going to put us in a difficult place as well.
It's coming down kind of heavy, but I'm not shy. Throw my slash to the puddle and I'm feeling fine. I got raincoat